Okay, let's dive right into 2 Kings chapter 16 today. We're looking at a really pivotal time in Judah's history, focusing on King Ahaz.
Right, Ahaz. He comes onto the scene. The text says, in the 17th year of Pekah, Pekah was king up in Israel then.
And he's young, right? 20 years old when he takes the throne in Jerusalem.
Exactly, 20 years old, and he reigns for 16 years. And, well, the source wastes no time telling you what kind of reign this is going to be.
Yeah, it sets it up immediately by contrasting him with his ancestor David, who the narrative always points to as doing what was right in the eyes of the Lord.
And Ahaz. The text is blunt. He did not follow that path. It says he went in a very different direction, pretty much from the get-go.
How so? What are the first things mentioned?
Well, straight away, it says he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel. Now, for a king of Judah in this context, that's presented as a major problem, a real negative judgment.
And it gets specific and pretty dark very quickly, doesn't it? There's one practice mentioned that's just shocking.
It really is. It's jarring. The text explicitly states he sacrificed his son in the fire.
Wow.
And it directly links this act to, quote, the detestable ways of the nations that the Israelites supposedly drove out. So this isn't just bending the rules slightly. It's adopting something seen as fundamentally, abhorrent.
Yeah, sacrificing your own child. That's way beyond just alternative worship. It's embracing something the text defines as completely foreign and, well, wrong for Judah.
Absolutely. And it wasn't an isolated thing either. The text also mentions other forbidden practices he engaged in.
Like what?
Offering sacrifices, burning incense, but doing it outside the main temple. At the high places, it says, on the hilltops and under every spreading tree.
So basically everywhere but the designated central place of worship.
Pretty much. It suggests, a widespread adoption of other religious practices, maybe linked to local deities, moving away from that centralized worship the narrative emphasizes.
Okay, so internally, on the religious front, Ahaz is portrayed as making a radical break with tradition, adopting practices viewed as corrupting. But his reign had external pressures too, right? Huge ones, actually.
Oh, definitely. He faced an immediate military crisis, a serious one. Rezin, the king of Aram, that's often called Syria and Pekah, the king of Israel we mentioned.
His northern neighbor.
Right. They teamed up, they formed an alliance, and marched straight for Jerusalem, laying siege to Ahaz in his own capital.
But the text says they could not overpower him. So Jerusalem itself held. The siege failed in that sense.
That's what it says. The city didn't fall. Now, it doesn't explain why they couldn't take it. Maybe strong defenses, maybe internal issues in their alliance. We don't know. But Ahaz wasn't overthrown right then.
Okay, but even a failed siege puts immense pressure on a kingdom. Did this alliance cause other problems? Did Judah lose territory?
Yes, exactly. The threat was real, and it had consequences. The text mentions that Rezin, the king of Aram, managed to recapture Elath.
Elath, that was an important port city, wasn't it? For trade.
Very important. So losing Elath was a significant blow. And the text adds that Edomites then moved in and settled there. So even though Jerusalem survived the siege, the kingdom was definitely feeling the pressure and losing ground.
Oh, Ahaz is cornered. He's got this damaging alliance hammering at him. What does he do? Does he look inward, maybe pray, fortify, or?
Or he looks outward. And this is really the turning point in the narrative of his reign. Instead of relying on, let's say, divine help, which other kings in this narrative might have done.
Well, one's portrayed favorably, yeah.
Right. Ahaz turns to the regional superpower, Assyria, specifically to King Tiglath-Pileser III, a very powerful, very expansionist ruler.
And how does he approach Assyria as an equal partner?
Not even close. His message, sent by messengers, is one of total submission. He tells Tiglath-Pileser, basically, I am your servant and vassal. Come up and save me.
Servant and vassal, that's pledging complete loyalty, isn't it? Subservience, really.
Absolutely. He's trading Judah's independence, effectively, for Assyrian military muscle to save him from Aram and Israel.
And you can bet that kind of help wasn't free. What was the price?
A steep one. The text is very clear about this. Ahaz raids his own kingdom's treasures. He takes the silver and gold found in the temple of the Lord and in the treasuries of the royal palace.
So sacred funds from the temple and state funds from the palace?
Both. He gathers it all up and sends it off as a gift, essentially, tribute payment to the Assyrian king.
Using money dedicated to worship or the kingdom's own needs to basically buy protection from Assyria. That says a lot about his priorities, or might he be just his desperation?
It definitely marks a major shift. Temple treasuries weren't typically used like personal slush funds for foreign policy dictated by fear.
So does it work? Does Tiglath-Pileser take the money and help Ahaz out?
He does. The Assyrian king accepts the terms and the payment and takes action. The text says he attacks Damascus, the capital of Aram.
Rezin's capital.
Exactly. He captures it, deports the people, a common Assyrian tactic, and most importantly for Ahaz, he puts Rezin, the king of Aram, to death.
So boom, the immediate threat from Aram is gone. That must have weakened the alliance with Israel, too.
Definitely. So from a purely political, short-term survival perspective, Ahaz's gamble, his submission to Assyria, paid off. It saved his throne from immediate conquest.
But becoming an Assyrian vassal, that has long-term strings attached, surely. And the story suggests this relationship seeped into more than just politics, didn't it? It affected religious life, too.
Deeply. This is where it gets really interesting. Ahaz actually travels to Damascus, presumably to meet Tiglath-Pileser, his new overlord.
Okay. Paying respects, maybe.
It seems likely. And while he's there, in Damascus, the city Assyria just conquered for him, he sees something, an altar. And it makes a huge impression on him.
He likes the look of this foreign altar.
Apparently so. He's so impressed that he doesn't just admire it. He decides he wants one just like it back home, in the Jerusalem temple complex.
Wait, he wants to replicate a foreign altar in the temple of the Lord? How does he arrange that?
He sends detailed instructions back to Jerusalem. The text says a sketch of the altar, with detailed plans for its construction. He sends this to Uriah, the priest.
Uriah, the chief priest in Jerusalem. What does he do? Does he push back at all? I mean, this is a direct import of a foreign religious object.
The text gives no indication of pushback. It simply says Uriah the priest built the new altar according to Ahaz's exact plans. And he finished it before Ahaz even got back from Damascus.
Wow, total compliance from the priesthood. That's notable.
It is. It might show Ahaz's absolute authority, or maybe the political pressure everyone was under because of the Assyrian situation. Hard to say for sure from the text alone.
So Ahaz returns, and there it is, this brand new altar based on a design from Damascus waiting in the temple courtyard. What's his first move?
He goes straight to it. The text says he approached it and presented offerings on it. He basically inaugurates this new foreign-style altar by using it for all the major sacrifices, burnt offerings, grain offerings, drink offerings, the lot.
So he's not just adding it to the side somewhere. He's actively using it for core worship acts. Did this change the layout of the temple court?
Fundamentally,
Yeah.
it led to a major reorganization. The existing main altar, the bronze altar that stood before the Lord, which had been the central focus.
The traditional one.
Right, that one gets moved. It used to be between the temple building and this new altar spot. Ahaz shoves it off to the north side of his big, new Damascus-style altar.
So the imported altar takes pride of place. Center stage, effectively.
That's exactly what the positioning implies. The big new altar becomes the main one. Ahaz even tells Uriah the priest, essentially, use this large altar for everything, the morning and evening sacrifices, my royal offerings, the people's offerings, everything goes here.
But he keeps the old bronze altar. He doesn't destroy it. What's its purpose now?
He keeps it, yeah, but gives it a different, maybe lesser role. Ahaz says, according to the text, but I will use the bronze altar for seeking guidance.
Seeking guidance. That's kind of vague. So primary worship shifts to the new foreign altar, and the old one gets this secondary, less defined function.
Seems to be the implication. It's a fascinating shift in priority
Yeah.
and function within this sacred space.
And Uriah the priest just goes along with all this.
The text repeats, and Uriah the priest did just as King Ahaz had ordered. It really emphasizes his complete obedience to the king's religious restructuring.
Were there other changes, too, beyond the altars?
Yes, Ahaz wasn't done rearranging things. He removed parts of the temple furnishings. It mentions taking away side panels and basins from the movable stands. These were likely used in preparing sacrifices.
Okay.
And he also deals with the sea, that huge bronze basin that stood on 12 bronze bowls. Big symbolic piece, maybe for priestly washing or representing cosmic waters. Ahaz takes it off the bowls and puts it on a stone base instead.
So practical changes, symbolic changes, altering the whole feel and function of the temple space.
Exactly. And some of these changes are explicitly tied back to Assyria. This is crucial.
How so?
The text states he took away the Sabbath canopy, whatever that specifically was, maybe a special covering or structure used on the Sabbath, and he also removed the royal entryway outside the temple. And the reason given?
Let me guess.
In deference to the king of Assyria.
Wow. In deference to the king of Assyria. It actually says that. So he's physically altering the temple structure and access points specifically to please or acknowledge his Assyrian overlord.
That's what the text explicitly claims. It directly links changes in Judah's most sacred space to the political reality of being an Assyrian vassal. Internal worship practice is modified because of external political submission.
That's a powerful connection the narrative draws. How does the account of Ahaz end then?
It wraps up fairly standardly for this book. It mentions that more details are in the official chronicles, the book of the annals of the kings of Judah. Then it notes his death. Ahaz rested with his fathers, buried in Jerusalem, the city of David, and his son Hezekiah takes the throne.
Okay, so stepping back from this deep dive into 2 Kings 16, we've traced Ahaz's reign. Starts with religious divergence, practices the text calls detestable, faces a military crisis, chooses foreign alliance over, well, anything else.
Pays for it by emptying the temple and palace treasuries. Becomes an Assyrian vassal.
And that political reality then bleeds directly into religious practice, importing a foreign altar, sidelining the traditional one, changing furnishings, even altering structures explicitly in deference to Assyria.
It paints a picture of a leader whose choices, driven perhaps by fear or political pragmatism, reshaped not just his kingdom's foreign policy, but its core religious identity and sacred spaces, according to this account.
It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? Based purely on this text, what does it signify when a leader starts making decisions about holy sites and long-held religious practices, specifically to appease or in deference to an external political power? What kind of long-term effects might prioritizing that kind of political survival have on a nation's faith and identity, as presented here? Something to definitely ponder.